Greetings everyone. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving us a like. Your support by liking the video will greatly motivate us to continue this journey. We all feel scared about something, like heights, clowns, or even death, as everyone has their own fears. But there's one fear that many people share, the thought that someone might be outside when you're home alone, especially late at night. I was 12 years old when something scary happened to me while I was home alone that time. People have asked me about it a lot, but I don't like talking about it in person. Right now though, I think I should share it, and maybe telling a bunch of strangers what happened can help me, because therapy isn't really working. So this happened about a week or two before Thanksgiving. My parents had gone out to dinner, and then we're gonna go see a movie afterwards. They thought they'd be back home by midnight, so that was fine with me. I've been alone at home before and I liked having some time to myself, but the only thing that was a bit different this time is that because they were going out to eat, they didn't cook dinner for me before they left. But instead they ordered a pizza for me. I was watching a movie in the living room while my parents were in the dining room, waiting for the pizza to arrive before they went out. But the pizza was taking longer than they thought, so they told me to give the delivery person $5 as a tip when they came. I found out later that they had reservations at the restaurant, and that's why they had to leave before the pizza guy got there. After they left, about another 30 minutes passed before the pizza guy got to my house. I opened the front door, and a shaky-looking guy that looked like he was on cocaine was standing there, but with no pizza. I stood there looking at him bewildered and awkwardly, and then finally asked, "Where's the pizza?" The guy smiled and laughed and said, I left it in the car. I'll go get it, but first, can I come in to use your bathroom?" This was so unexpected. I hate confrontation, so I said, yes. I watched the guy walk down the hallway and enter the bathroom and then closed the door. Everything was fine at first, but after a little while, something didn't feel right, so I got up to check, and that's when I saw that the bathroom door was open. I thought the person might come out any moment, so I walked towards the bathroom. But I felt really worried when I saw he wasn't there. I didn't understand what was happening, but then thought maybe he had quietly left through the front door to get the pizza. So I went to the front door and looked outside through the screen. I saw a car parked, but I couldn't see the person. I started thinking of different things that could be going on, and I got really scared when I realized he might still be in my house. I turned around and went to the kitchen. Nothing seemed wrong there. Then I checked the dining room, still nothing. I shouted, "Hey, is anyone here?" I didn't really expect an answer, but to my surprise, the guy replied, "Yes." I felt unsure about what to do next, so I just stood there, my mind trying to understand this scary situation that you usually only see in TV shows or movies. I decided to leave the house quickly. I walked out through the still open front door and went toward the guy's car. I walked around to the back of the car, and when I got to the door on the driver's side, I saw something incredibly disturbing. There was a person sitting in the front seat, leaning over the steering wheel, with blood all over the window. I looked up and saw the guy standing in the window upstairs, looking down at me. After seeing the guy hunched over in the car, the blood, and then the guy standing in the window upstairs, I ran. I ran until I saw anyone. There was a woman getting out of her car at some random house, and I actually scared her when I approached. My frantic state must have made me look dangerous. I told her what was happening at my house and asked her to call the cops. She did, and then went inside and asked me to wait outside on the porch. I was so scared, I half expected to see the guy bolt around the corner out of the darkness and find me. All was quiet until 2 cops showed up. They took me home and called my parents. I didn't go inside until my parents came back. Even then, I still worried that maybe the police missed the guy, and he was hiding in our house. More police officers came, and an ambulance too. Even after all these years, we're still not sure exactly what happened. Our best guess is that a random person went crazy and attacked the pizza guy when he came. I don't know why he came into our house or what he wanted to do. They never caught him, and I never saw him again. The thing I remember most is how blood looks on glass. It's much scarier than what you see in movies. So this happened 4 years ago, when I was 16. My mom died when I was 2 years old, so it was just my dad and I. At that time we lived in an old house that my grandparents owned, and it was falling apart. I never felt safe in this house, even when my dad was home. I always had this gut feeling that someone would eventually break in. I don't know why, and I just hoped that I wouldn't be home when they did. It was a Friday night, and my dad had to work late. I was working on a paper that was due the following Monday, and I wanted to bust it out and have the rest of the weekend to chill and do whatever I want. I was sitting at my desk in the computer room next to the kitchen. The house had 2 main doors, one was at the front, and the other was in the kitchen leading to the backyard. We didn't have a fence around our yard. I was busy typing and making good progress when the phone rang. It was in 2001, and I didn't have a mobile phone back then. My dad had one, but I used the regular telephone in the house. I answered the phone, and a person selling something started talking about getting us a new roof. He talked for a really long time, about 3 minutes, without stopping for me to say no, but finally, when he took a breath, I said that we don't need it because we rent the house, and I hung up. But around 20 minutes later, I had completed about half of my paper, when the phone rang again. I picked it up, and after I said, "Hello," I heard nothing except breathing. I repeated, "Hello?" And the telemarketer that I'd called before suddenly spoke. He apologized and said that he must have redialed my house by mistake. I thought it was slightly weird, but told him no problem and hung up again. Just 10 seconds later, the phone rang again. I started to feel like something was not right, and I realized I was all alone at home. I answered the phone and said, "Hello," in a worried voice. I could hear the breathing again, like the person wanted me to hear it. I told them, "We're not interested, and we don't own this house. Please don't call again." After that I stood up and went to the kitchen to get a soda from the fridge, as it felt really uneasy. I used to watch a lot of scary movies back then, so that night it felt like I was inside one of those movies. I had a feeling like someone was watching me and couldn't focus on my paper anymore, so I went to the living room and turned on the TV to watch an action movie. After around an hour, I had stopped feeling scared about the strange calls and was starting to fall asleep. Then, the phone rang again. It startled me awake, and I let it ring for a moment. But then I thought it might be my dad, so I hurried to the office and answered it. Before I could even say hello, the same person from earlier said, "You have a nice house." This was really frightening, you know? It was the scariest thing I had ever heard. I didn't know how to respond, and then suddenly, I heard the back door in the kitchen open and slam shut. I hung up the phone and quickly called my dad. It kept ringing, and finally, he picked up. But something felt wrong when he spoke. It wasn't actually him. It was not my dad that said hello. It was him, the guy. The telemarketer. I don't know what I was thinking after that. I remember I hung up the phone and ran into my dad's room. It had a lock. No other room had a lock. The phone rang probably 30 more times while I sat in there and waited. I heard noises all throughout the house, but I can't say for sure what they were. My dad finally got home. It was really late. He told me that his cell phone disappeared off of his desk at work and was disturbed when I explained what had happened. Someone from his work had stolen his phone and had come to our house that night. We never found out who it was. My dad still works with that same company, and it still scares me to think that whoever did this could still be working with him, interacting with him every day.
This is the true story of my childhood, 2 adult years as I recounted. Rattlesnake Road is an original name to a road that has since been changed. I used it to maintain anonymity. I was born on Long Island, New York, and ever since I can remember, I have had really strange experiences. I was never able to sleep at night, and from a young age, I was always terrified of the dark. Yes, every child is afraid of the dark, but I was afraid for a reason that I was unable to explain until later in life. There are a few stories from while I was there, but I want to fast forward to when I was a little bit older and things began to make sense to me. My family purchased a second home and we moved to Colorado. We lived on a ranch located at the top of a hill that fed into the Rocky Mountains. There wasn't much around us. A few neighbors, our barn with our animals, and thousands of acres of hilly and mountainous terrain that surrounded our family. There was a long dirt road that led to our property, Rattlesnake Road. It was the perfect shot of the scenery leading up to our small 3-bedroom home. It was quiet, peaceful, but the land was old. I was about 7 years old at the time. This is when I began to understand what I was going through wasn't normal. Our home was small. It was a ranch-style house with a 3-car garage, which took up half of the structure. The other half was built into the hillside where you entered from the front. You walked into the living room and you could see straight out the back sliding doors into the plains. In front of you was the kitchen, old with brick, straight down the hallway. My room was on the right. My brother's room followed that, and lastly, my parents' room was on the left. The bathrooms connected and were on the right as well, wrapping around at the back of the house. I left the hallway lights on when I slept. I was scared to begin with, but something always felt as though it wasn't just our family there. One night I was up and I couldn't fall back asleep. My parents and brother were sleeping as well. I could hear them snoring down the hall. My bedroom door was open and I was facing the hallway when suddenly the pole string to my closet made a click and the lights popped on. I could see the light making its way through the slated shades of my closet, and my heart began to race. Then they shut off. The air in the room became cold, tense. The silence set in. I couldn't hear the snoring anymore. I couldn't hear anything. I looked toward the hallway and there was a short black static mist. It had no facial features, but what I could see would have been a mouth. It seemed as though it was smiling ear to ear, which paralyzed me with an intense feeling of dread. It passed out my doorway and out of sight, not making a sound. Moments later, I heard what sounded like the door to our garage open and close, and the air lifted. All of my surroundings returned to normal. I knew I was awake. I knew what I had seen there, and it visited me, only to get worse as time went on. That image will be turned into my mind for the rest of my life.